Welcome to Celestial Zodiac. Today we're exploring natal retrogrades, one of the most misunderstood yet quietly powerful features in a birth chart. When people hear the word retrograde, they often think of disruption, delays, or chaos, because that's how retrogrades are usually discussed during transits. Natal retrogrades, however, are fundamentally different. They do not describe temporary phases. They describe a lifelong internal relationship with a planet's energy, shaping how a person thinks, feels, learns, and matures over time. To be born with a planet retrograde means that the planet's energy is turned inward rather than expressed outward in a straightforward way. This does not mean the planet is weak or damaged. It means its function is internalized, processed subjectively, and developed through personal experience rather than external feedback. The individual does not simply act, speak, love, assert, or structure automatically in that area of life. Instead, they reflect, reconsider, question, and revise. This internal loop often begins very early, long before the person has the language to understand it. Many people with natal retrogrades report feeling different from an early age. They may notice that others seem to just know how to function socially, emotionally, or practically in ways that feel unnatural or delayed for them. This can create a sense of being out of step with peers, especially in childhood and early adulthood. There is often a feeling of needing more time, more understanding, or more internal certainty before taking action. This is not indecision. It is internal calibration. Natal retrogrades tend to demand self-awareness. Nothing in the retrograde planet's domain operates unconsciously. The individual is forced to confront their motivations, beliefs, and assumptions repeatedly. Because of this, retrograde planets often bring early self-doubt, but they also prevent blind conformity. These individuals are rarely satisfied with surface explanations. They want to understand how and why something works, not just that it does. Over time, this produces depth of character and thought that others may never develop. One of the most challenging aspects of natal retrogrades is comparison. Early in life, it can feel as though others move ahead effortlessly while the retrograde individual struggles internally. This comparison can lead to frustration, withdrawal, or the belief that something is wrong. In reality, development is happening internally where it cannot be seen or measured. While others may rely on instinct or imitation, the retrograde individual is building an internal framework that will eventually be far more stable. For example, imagine someone born with Mercury retrograde in their chart. As a child or young adult, they may struggle to speak quickly, process information on the spot, or express their thoughts the way others seem to. In classrooms or conversations, it can feel like everyone else raises their hand effortlessly while their own thoughts need more time to form. This often leads to the belief that they are slow, unsure, or not as intelligent, when in reality their mind is working more deeply, filtering information internally before it comes out. Over time, this same person may become an exceptionally clear writer, a careful thinker, or someone who communicates with precision and depth, because they have learned to structure their thoughts consciously rather than relying on reflex. Here's another way this comparison can show up. Someone with Venus retrograde may watch others move easily through relationships, dating, or social connections, while they feel unsure of what they truly want or how they should express affection. Early on, this can create loneliness or self-doubt, especially when comparing themselves to peers who seem emotionally confident. But beneath the surface, this person is developing a deeply personal understanding of love, values, and self-worth. Later in life, they often form relationships that are more intentional, authentic, and aligned, because their choices come from self-knowledge rather than imitation. What these examples show is that natal retrogrades don't delay growth. They redirect it inward. The progress is real, but it happens privately, often without external validation. While others are learning by copying what they see around them, the retrograde individual is learning by testing, reflecting, and refining internally. When the external expression finally emerges, it tends to be grounded, self-defined, and resilient, rather than reactive or dependent on comparison. Natal retrogrades also tend to repeat lessons. The same themes may resurface in different forms across relationships, careers, or personal challenges. This repetition is often misunderstood as failure or regression, but it is actually refinement. Each repetition strips away assumptions and deepens understanding. Over time, patterns become clearer, reactions become more conscious, and choices become more intentional. What once felt cyclical eventually becomes integrated wisdom. As life progresses, the advantages of natal retrogrades become more apparent. Unlike direct planets, which can operate automatically and sometimes unconsciously, retrograde planets develop deliberately. This creates individuals who act with awareness rather than impulse. Once confidence is established, it tends to be quiet, stable, and resistant to external disruption. These people do not need constant validation because their authority comes from experience rather than approval. This is why natal retrogrades are often associated with maturity that arrives later in life. Early years may feel heavy or slow, but midlife frequently brings a shift. The internal work that has been happening all along begins to show externally. Decisions become clearer. Boundaries strengthen. Self-trust replaces self-questioning. Many people with natal retrogrades report that life feels easier, not harder, as they age. The idea of the old soul is frequently connected to natal retrogrades, not because of mysticism alone, but because of psychological orientation. Retrograde individuals tend to prioritize meaning over speed, depth over appearance, and internal alignment over external success. They may resist superficial goals or societal timelines, often feeling pressured to perform roles that do not reflect their internal truth. Over time, this resistance becomes discernment. For example, an old soul pattern often shows up very early in life. A child or teenager with several natal retrogrades may feel uncomfortable chasing the same milestones as their peers. While others are focused on popularity, fast success, or fitting in, this person may feel detached from those goals, even if they try to pursue them at first. They might sense, often without being able to articulate it, that something about those timelines feels empty or misaligned. This can lead to feeling out of place, misunderstood, or even prematurely serious, as if they are living slightly out of sync with the world around them. Later in life, this same pattern becomes clearer. An adult with strong natal retrogrades may resist rushing into careers, relationships, or identities simply because they are expected. They may question paths that look successful on the surface but lack meaning underneath. While others may prioritize speed, status, or external validation, this person is more concerned with whether their choices feel internally honest and sustainable. Even when they do achieve success, it often comes through unconventional routes or later timelines, because they are unwilling to sacrifice internal alignment for appearances. Over time, what once looked like hesitation reveals itself as discernment. The individual becomes someone who makes fewer but more intentional choices, values depth over quantity, and understands that fulfillment is not measured by how quickly life moves, but by how authentically it is lived. This is why people with natal retrogrades are often described as wise beyond their years early in life, and surprisingly youthful later on. Their energy matures inwardly first. allowing them to navigate life with clarity and self-respect rather than urgency or pressure. House placement adds another layer to natal retrogrades. The house shows where life consistently demands internal reflection. This area of life may feel complicated, delayed, or deeply personal, not because the individual lacks ability, but because growth there requires conscious engagement. Sign placement shows how this internal process feels emotionally and mentally. Together, they describe a lifelong apprenticeship in a specific domain of experience. It's also important to clarify that natal retrogrades are not inherently karmic punishments. They are developmental paths. They indicate areas where learning happens from the inside out. While some traditions frame retrogrades in karmic language, the lived experience is far more practical. These planets require ownership, responsibility, and personal definition rather than inherited rules or expectations. As individuals with natal retrogrades mature, they often become guides for others. Because they have struggled internally, they can articulate complexity with clarity. Many teachers, counselors, strategists, and advisors have strong retrograde signatures, because they understand nuance and contradiction. They know that growth is rarely linear and that understanding often comes after confusion. Another key distinction is between natal retrogrades and transit retrogrades. Transit retrogrades temporarily slow or reverse planetary energy for everyone, creating collective periods of review. Natal retrogrades describe a permanent internal orientation. When a transiting planet goes retrograde over a natal retrograde planet, the effect can be especially profound, often triggering moments of deep realization or internal breakthrough. Over time, natal retrogrades tend to become sources of resilience. Because these individuals have learned to rely on internal guidance, they are less destabilized by external change. They adapt thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Their strength is quiet but enduring. They may not be the first to act, but they are often the most prepared when they do. Ultimately, natal retrogrades ask for patience with oneself. They challenge the idea that progress must be visible, fast, or externally rewarded. They remind us that some of the most important work happens internally, away from recognition or applause. If you have natal retrogrades in your chart, your path is not delayed. It is deliberate. Understanding natal retrogrades allows you to stop measuring yourself against timelines that were never designed for you. When you honor your internal rhythm, what once felt like an obstacle often reveals itself as a long-term advantage. Natal retrogrades do not deny success. They redefine it by grounding it in self-awareness, integrity, and lived wisdom that deepens with time. If you have natal retrogrades in your birth chart, remember that your timing is not wrong and your path is not delayed. These placements develop depth, awareness, and internal authority over time. In our next video, we'll explore transit retrogrades, how they differ from natal retrogrades, and why their effects feel more immediate and temporary. Thank you for watching Celestial Zodiac. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this video.